for this afternoon, and your lighting looks beautiful. It's all good. Is the fantastic Anna Poberezhna, and I'm sorry, I've probably totally mispronounced your surname there. Anna, actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let Anna introduce herself and what she's going to be talking about, and then we'll all be able to jump in with questions afterwards. So Anna, if you've got a presentation that you want to share, if not, we can share it from our side. What would you prefer us to do?
Hi, everyone. I've got it here. You've got it as well, Sam. I think the share screen button works well. I can see it actually, yeah. So happy to do that. But let me be on that route and introduce myself. Thank you for having me, everyone. Yes, indeed, it was a very short notice, but it's not that short because Sarah knows me since 2019, ESG seminar, webinar, practical workshop that was launched. I remember that cohort, Christopher Rees, Sarah, absolutely amazing people who were driving the changes in Geological Survey Society in London. I can see Norman Gridley, who's been mentoring me as well and introducing me the operational particles in mining, leaching and everything, and trying to get me out of the rabbit holes. So long story short, I'm the tech entrepreneur. I'm coming from construction industry, which resembles me a lot mining, where engineers are engineers, architects are geologists, and a lot of similarities. And so it's all about the constructing and mining the value and delivering the true value as well. So in that journey, I embarked myself on the technology innovation. There's a lot of fancy words like supply chain management, blockchain transparency, trust, fintech, supply chain finance. You probably all heard also the venture called MineHub. That was one of the ventures that actually landed me in mining. Before I was looking into the natural resource management from the water perspective, integrated water resource management. So my ultimate actually task or goal or outcome I'm trying to achieve here is to embark with all of you on the journey here. It's a collective task, and I'll share probably with you here. Let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yep, it's all brilliant.
Yes, okay, cool. So, fantastic. So, I mean, the transformative journey of mining. So I've been trying to combine these three aspects before I came here. So it's natural resource management, sustainable natural resource management, fintech, and the community-centric approach to deliver the nature positive outcomes. So it took me some time to understand actually how it's going to look like. So, and what I found out recently, so after all these rabbit holes that I've been to, we don't really lack anything. We have everything sufficient. We have amazing people. We have some innovative companies and innovative business models. What we do really lack is there is a lack of the change at scale and the replicable to deliver the change fast and at scale. And extractive industries, be it oil and gas, be it mining, well, as you can see the statistics, the extraction has tripled and it's going to grow, and there is a big disconnect between all these mega projects, mega factories, be it Tesla, be it anything else. However, we still can see that we haven't lifted at the same pace people from the poverty and haven't delivered the true change and relocation, not of just their natural resources, but of the bells at the same pace. And I think this is where the difference can be made and changes can happen. And how to do that? So basically, it's a very, very old thing. I think conservation, restoration, regeneration is a way to go. And for mining industry, or generally the extractive industry and energy is in the heart of this change. And it's a very old concept. It's been promoted since a very old time when Roosevelt started building up the national parks and realized quickly that true industrialization without true conservation are not going to deliver sustainable development, not going to deliver sustainable change in the long run. And this is where we are. So now we have a lot of fancy words, a lot of interesting methodologies and approaches, be it circular, be it nature positive solutions, be it nature-based solutions, and so on and so forth. But the question here is why they're not there, and that's what I was trying to understand in the last couple of years, speaking to the different stakeholders, communities, indigenous people, trying to help them with their water rights, trying to understand the mining trade-offs in the water space, trying to understand the government position, be it Chile, be it Ecuador, trying to speak to their experts like yourself to connect it to the integrated risk perspective, and of course trying to understand the investment space, which hasn't changed at all so much, especially the mining investment change, who very much consistent in asking their own questions in terms of what is a capex? What is an IRR? What is an NPV here? Regardless whether there are outcomes which are focused not just on their, regardless of the, they don't not necessarily fixed on the outcomes, but they necessarily fixed on the outputs. And I think this is a huge disconnect, but I also see it's a huge opportunity as well, because personally I witnessed recently in the investment mining conference several amazing startups or mining companies where they're no longer mining, they're transforming themselves, where they're presenting their outcomes and the questions just didn't catch up with them. Questions like, do you have other baskets in your, other commodities in your baskets? And I was like, yeah, that's incomplete picture. So how do we unlock what Sarah has been promoting here, this thing, right? So, and I think this is where the mining, or this is where the industry is, right? It's not just mining, I'd say. I think it's the same applies to infrastructure, the same applies to construction, the same applies to any heavy industries or generally industries. And of course, mining at the heart, because partially it enables, partially it drives, and of course, partially it's just a supplier. So there is a bigger picture in this. And this is the bigger picture I've been working myself as well. And it was extremely challenging to connect the dots. So we've got only one planet. There is no planet B. And mining industry taught me big way about the practicality. And this is what I really, really appreciate, be it mining, construction. So, however, the overexploitation cost, which is externalized and is not put on the balance sheet, is roughly half of our global GDP. And quite often it just went into their balance sheets as a part of the trade-offs. But if we actually step back a bit and then we actually see it at the larger scale, it's actually huge. And how we actually can deliver value, and there are answers. It just wasn't matter how to build that pathway, how to turn those risks into those and to grasp those opportunities. And Sarah has invited here really some amazing use cases and best practices at doing that. So our task, I think, here is to build it up from there and to show how to deliver the business value. It's not necessarily 10 trillion a year is going to be just within extractives. Extractives is roughly 1/3 of that. And in terms of the jobs of creation, it's going to be roughly around 90 mil. But it's all possible. And so to do the reality check here as well, where is mining right now in terms of their, as a generalized situation, right? And we're not talking about some independent individual companies, but it sits somewhere at the net zero, where some of the end consumers of mining, if we look at the value chain or if we look at the supply chain, I look from the perspective of value chain. A lot of companies still consider it from the supply chain. Doesn't really matter. They sit already in the impact creation, not just ESG, not just as their sustainable development, which is impact as well, but somewhere looking into the net positive. I mean, everyone respects, a lot of people respect Tesla. I'm not going to go into the controversies around its water. there is a lot of aspects. However, what I'm here to point out is impact reporting. And the next stage will be impact. The next stage will be, of course, restoration, regeneration, which got to be included. So we can see a huge disconnect in the supply chain, not only from the perspective of the trust, transparency, responsible mining, responsible sourcing, but we also see a huge disconnect between the practices and processes within the same actually value chain. And I think there is a lot of reconciliation work processes can be done within the industry, within the consortia, and that's the best one of the best approaches which I have seen in the tech space. And I think Andy Reynolds also mentioned that the sort of the lean way or agile. There are so many ways how to call it. How to actually move that red pin from net zero into actually and build it up. Build it up and actually move from the net zero thinking. And I will not be ashamed to say it, because in the investment world, it's very much often called, and I will quote even Responsible Investor recently publication, it's called net zero bullshit. Why is it so? Is because we've got we need to keep in mind that we have one planet. And coming back to this point, we actually cannot follow that trend of net zero, because it's not going to bring us too far. And it's not going to bring us too far in terms of this unlocking sustainable development world and regenerative world, which is Sarah also is mentioning, and we seem to share all of that. So how to achieve that? There are different ways, and I think some of those were mentioned in their in this conference already. So there is a digital aspect and there is a physical aspect. Physical aspect, what I mean is that it's technological, it's engineering solutions which are based on their closed loop technical solutions and engineering solutions and technologies, be it energy, green energy, renewable energy, hydrogen solutions, be it closed loop production systems, be it eco-industrial cluster developments, which we can see broadly developing in the European Union, and there are some also being developed in Australia. However, that's all not possible if we don't have data, because what's not measured, that's not managed. What's not measured, what's not managed, that's not trusted. And that's what I've seen a lot in the fintech world, from which partially I'm coming as well. And one thing is to optimize, design their optimal systems from the engineering perspective, but the other side is to get funded for that. And this is where we see, coming back to this perspective, this is a huge gap. And this is what mining actually very much well experienced as well. Quite often there is interesting projects, but they struggle with getting funded. Getting funded because mining is one of their highest risk and brownest industries on Earth. And that was, until recently, not very much was willing to change. And we see now a huge leapfrog from certain projects which are driving the change, quickly digitizing, quickly automating, quickly looking into the remote sensing, remote operations, and enabling transparent, cooperating with startups to build up visibility throughout supply chains. It's all necessary solutions. And so to answer your question, what I'm doing, a bit of both of that. And it took me some time to understand. So if you want to do something, build it yourself, and show by example rather than just trying to explain how to do that. And the biggest as well to how to do it in the fastest and most and they're basically to create it at scale in a collaborative way. And this is where we built in the past ecosystems. We've done it through the platforms, we've done it through the ecosystems enablement, through the connected supply chains, removing where possible intermediaries, and removing where possible unnecessary transactional costs and administrative costs to speed up basically mine to product and mine to market raw materials. But also it's not just bringing the efficiencies or security of supply chains, but my perspective is very much is also, that's why I moved from their downstream supply chain into the upstream as well, how we create positive outcomes and that impact which Tesla mentioned in their report, and how we can prove that impact to the communities, to the host communities, to investors, and make it in the profitable way. We don't need to sacrifice it. We don't need to call it charity. Yes, we might think from a perspective of their capex, and I think it's a creative task here. what type of technologies and design systems we need to put in place to ensure that we as a business are actually profitable, but not at the cost of communities and not at the cost of irreplaceable materials. So I call it just mining the value. And I think that's what all of us here are doing. And I'm very much open, not just for the questions, but also for discussion and for sort of engagement.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna. Absolutely brilliant, especially coming in at such short notice. There we go. To speak to us here today. Round of applause. Brilliant. Fantastic. So with this, Anna, Maria's actually put a question into the chat, and I'm going to go with it straight away. So from your perspective, Anna, should we invest more on communicating concepts such as those that you've so eloquently put to us just now? And if so, who should we be communicating to governments, society at large, etc.? What do we need to do to actually kind of get this cranking? Because whilst you said if you want to see the change happening, then you've got to do it yourself. But then there's also a case of how do you then trigger other people to come on board that particular bus to generate that change? What do you think?
Well, it's like concentric circles. I think we would need first to understand, identify, and it's proven use cases and best practices, not just in mining, but everywhere. Of course, we've got to feed off to investors and to their and comply with all the compliance standards. And I think most of the companies are doing it anyway, or trying to, or on the pathway towards to. Let's put it that way. But we've got to look at their immediate landscape or immediate concessions where we create the most of the impact and communicate with those. And it's been proven as well. Why? Because in mining space in Peru, it's not government that just blocks. It's local communities that block the road if they don't like something. And for instance, we can see Chile as well. Well, the issue just grew to the extent that now it's when not just from the regional farmer level where everyone is fighting for the water, it's just like, all right, let's create the referendum. So the cat in the bag, or we call it black swan event, it's actually not just a black swan event. It was expected. It's a systemic risk that has not been, let's say, it's addressed earlier by consolidated effort. Let's put it that way. And to be more specific, when I was speaking to some mining companies, I was just too small for them, and they were too big for me. Let's put it that way. But the common sense, no one canceled. The shared infrastructure approach is a very much logical solution was for Chile. And then we wouldn't have seen probably the trade-offs, the mounting trade-offs or multiplying, geometrically growing trade-offs for the water there. However, it's not a one-man solution or not even one-man company solution, but now we can see cancellations of not just one company who are distressed or potentially distressed asset, but it's a domino effect. So we can see what's happening. It's a proof basically of negative impact.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Anna.